Hi and welcome back to This Bytes for You. In this video, I'm going to show you from the ground up how to build your next gaming PC. So come over here real quick and let's get started. Let's go over a quick inventory. First up, we have the Corsair 7000D Airflow case in white. As a base, we're going to be using the MSI Mag X570 Ace motherboard, 2 kits of Thermaltake TOUGHRAM RGB 4000 MHz RAM, 2x8 gig kits for a total of 32 gigs. Then we have the AMD Ryzen 9 5900X processor, followed by the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 420, followed by the EVGA Geforce RTX 3080 Ti FTW3 Ultra, then the blazing fast Sabrent Rocket 4 Plus 1TB M.2 SSD, then for storage, the 1TB Samsung 870 EVO SSD. And to power everything, the EVGA Supernova G Plus 1000 watt power supply. To help keep everything nice and cool and add some of that RGB flair, we have the GIM 120mm RGB case fans in a pack of 3. We have the GIM RGB ATX 24-pin extension cable. So let's get started. One of the things you'll notice is I don't use an ESD wristband. I hate them. They get in the way. One of the first things I do before I start building, before I handle all the parts, I ground myself on the case, the frame itself, anything kind of aluminum, steel, metal exposed inside the case. Just put your hands on it. If you do have ESD, you'll probably get a little zap when you touch it. But aside from that, let's get started here. So as you know, we have 3 M.2 sockets here, and they include 3 of these screws. The problem is they include them in the box and you're probably going to lose them. So what I recommend you do is go ahead and put them in their spots. Since we already have an M.2 SSD, I'm just going to set this one aside for right now. And then these 2, they're not going to be used at the moment. Surely they will be used at another point, but I'll take these out. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is just put those 2 M.2 SSD screws, I'm going to screw them in real quick. So I chose the second one because the first one is where the heatsink screws into. And we'll do the same thing for the bottom. Then we'll go ahead and put this heatsinks back on. And that way you don't lose them. So now we're going to go ahead and install the Sabrent Rocket Plus 1TB drive. Now the installation is relatively easy. We'll just go ahead, align these up, this little notch right here with this notch right over here on the board. And then we'll go ahead and just slide that in. Push it in a little tiny bit, push it down here, and then we'll go ahead and screw into place. And now we'll remove the protective cover over the thermal pad on the heatsink. And then we'll go ahead and just slide that heatsink back into place. And then we'll screw this in over here. Okay, so we've just installed an M.2 SSD. Then we'll go ahead and install the AMD Ryzen 9 5900X processor. Now you'll notice there's a white marking right over here on the motherboard on the corner of the CPU socket. And then on the CPU itself, there's a little marking right over here, a little gold triangle. That's going to go ahead and coincide with this over here. So all we'll do is line those 2 up. And then we don't need to push it in at all. It will fall into place. And then we'll push the arm down, locking it in place. So for the RAM, this is DIMM socket A1, A2, B1, and B2. Now, if you only had 1 stick of memory, you would insert it into A2. With 2 sticks of memory, you would install it in A2 and B2. With 4 sticks, well, we're just going to use all 4. All right, so there is 2 ways of installing RAM. The right way and the wrong way, of course. So you'll notice there's a notch right here and a notch right over here. Now we can just drop it in like this, and if the notch doesn't align, your RAM is going to seesaw. Turn it around like this, you can install your RAM, and then with your fingertips, just push down lightly, and you'll notice this little piece rose and this piece rose, locking the memory in place. So just make sure you push these out before you insert memory. I'm just going to go ahead and insert all the memory. Now let's move on to the liquid cooling. In order to install the liquid cooling unit, we first have to remove these little braces here. These braces are made for air cooling, air coolers that you just pop right in here, and they'll snap right in place. So we'll just remove these. And then we'll take these little brackets out. Now, I highly recommend you keep this in the motherboard box. Don't throw them out. You never know when you may need them again. Okay, so then after removing the brackets, we're going to go ahead and install the spacers, these guys right here, and just place them over those screw holes that we just removed. So now we're going to go ahead and put these brackets in place. For aim for Ryzen 3000 and 5000, the offsets are going to be for the top spot right up here. It's going to be right here. So we're going to go ahead and align the screw hole with that top section. And then for the bottom, we're going to go ahead and do the same, leaving the top right over the screw hole. And now we're going to go ahead and use these screws right in these holes. Now you don't want to screw it in all the way because you want to make sure this side aligns. And then once it does align, then just go ahead and screw it in all the way. And now, utilizing the thermal paste that came inside of the packet of the Arctic Freezer 2 420, we'll go ahead and apply that much. That should be good. This little container should contain enough for 2 applications. And now we're going to have the 40mm VRM fan face the top to cool, or to help cool, the VRMs right along here. All right, so in order to place the cold plate on the motherboard, we just need to prepare it real quick. First off, remove that. Definitely, you don't want to install that. In the package, Arctic includes 4 of these screws that are meant to hold down the cold plate, and then these 2 screws that are meant to screw in the bracket into the cold plate. So make sure you notice these have, the 4 have thicker threading than the 2. The 2 have thinner threading than the 4. Okay, so now we're going to be utilizing this bracket here, and the thinner of the 6 screws. So we'll slide that right into the hole, and then on the cold plate itself, we'll go ahead and drop it into here. Now, just pay careful attention that this bend is going inside out, and just screw that in. And the same thing for the other side as well. So bend on the inside, coming outwards. Okay, and now the way that we've placed this here, Arctic recommends that we have the VRM fan facing towards the top. Rightfully so, that is where the VRMs are going to be. And then we'll place these screws through these screw holes here and just push down to spread that thermal paste. Just give it a few seconds, let it settle in. Okay, now that it's settling, we're going to go ahead and put one of these nuts just on this side, for example. Now, we're not going to screw it in incredibly hard, just enough with your fingertip pressure. Now we want to get diagonal. So we did this one. We don't want to do this one. We want to do this one over here next. Okay, now we'll screw that one over here down all the way. Not very hard, just enough that it feels tight. And then we'll do the same thing over here. And now we'll just apply these 2 thumb screws or nuts. So we are done there. Now for good measures, we'll go ahead and connect this into the pump fan header. Mind you, we'll make it look pretty later, but right now just connect it to make it work. Here is the fan header and here is the pump header. So we'll just go ahead and plug in the pump right in here, just in case so we don't forget, but we'll make it look pretty a little bit later on in the wiring guide. One thing you have to be incredibly careful with is the standoffs for your motherboard. Now, right now this has it standard, but not every single motherboard is standard. So what you want to make sure of is before you place the motherboard, you want to see how many standoffs are here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3 on the top, 3 in the middle, and 3 on the bottom. I have the case kind of sideways because I'm going to be putting the liquid cooling unit right up here at the top. So now with the motherboard, we'll find that one over here at the top, then another one here, and then another one here. So that's 3 in the top, 1, there should be a third here, 3 in the middle. I need to check for this one. If there is not a hole here, I need to remove the other standoff. Then 1, 2, 3 here. So everything's in line except maybe that one. So let me check real quick. Removing the heat shield that we placed on top of the M.2 SSD, we can see right under here, there is a screw hole. Now, for some cases, depending on how the screws are and the standoff, in this case, no pun intended, the middle screw right over here is actually a reverse standoff. So we can see here the reverse standoff. Unlike the standoff right over here that we screw something into, on this standoff, we'd actually place the board and this would go through the board into the hole, keeping it in place. Okay, now we can grab the motherboard and put it in place. And I'm dropping the liquid cooling unit right up here at the very top, temporarily of course. And I'm just lining up all the screw holes here, 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 and here. And then over here, again, it's a little bit difficult because it's kind of out of sight, but I'm trying to make sure that that reverse screw sticks out, and it is sticking out. It's very hard to see, but you would have to see right under here, and it is sticking out, so that's perfect. And now we'll just go ahead and screw in all the standoffs. Now, in order to make sure there are no issues with alignment, I will screw one in over here, one in the middle if I can get to it, and then one over here. Those three let me know that everything is solid so that everything else is aligned. And the very last screw. With the radiator, we can either put it like this. See the hose right down here, and it's going to be right here as well on the radiator. That kind of makes the tube stick out. We can move it around, but it's not going to look right. The other way, the way I had planned on doing it, is coming this way. And then having the pump over here, bringing the tube over here to the radiator right over here. That keeps the tubing nice and straight. That way it cools a little bit better. So now all we need to do is line up all these screw holes and then screw them in. We'll require 12 screws. They're going to be screws just like that. So we'll go ahead and make sure that all lines match up. And then we'll put one over here, and we won't screw it in all the way. We'll leave it a little tiny bit loose. That way we can move it, slide it around if we need to. And then we'll get things in order. Over here, again, slightly loose to be able to slide everything around. Okay, now we can see the screw holes all up here and all down here as well. All right, now we'll screw them in all tightly, or tighter. All right, so now at this point, it's looking pretty good. I'd love to say it was done, but then of course we have to do some cabling, and there's a few more pieces of hardware. So we're gonna go ahead and put back the M.2 heatsink. And thankfully, the way that they've laid everything out, easy enough. Everything back together nicely. And then at this point, we'll go ahead and put in the video card. We'll go ahead and remove the second, the third, and the fourth PCIe slot cover. And actually, we'll leave the third one in there because even though it will take 2.5 slots, it only takes up 2 from the rear I/O. Then over here for the PCIe slot, there is a little lock over here. Make sure, sometimes you're gonna find it locked like this. When it's locked, you may not be able to fit a video card in there. To unlock it, just simply push it down. This opens it up so that you can slide in a video card. Then once the card slides in, it'll lock in place right on here, and that's where that lock locks into. Showing you from a higher angle. We'll go ahead and slide this PCIe part right into here. And then just lightly push in. And then once we pushed in, you might have noticed that little locking mechanism locked in place. Now we'll go ahead and screw in all the screws right over here. So notice I'm just pushing up with my fingers, making sure that it's screwed right in place. Okay, and even though we are going to be removing it when we install the PCIe cables, I just want to show you how the retention bracket works. Just put it down, slide it up till it raises the card a little bit to keep it from sagging. We'll screw it in place. And that goes ahead and holds the card in place. Now, a lot of you don't like this particular sag bracket or anti-sag bracket. I will actually be testing a few different soon, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so after we've put in the video card, we already have an M.2 SSD right up here, but we have more options for storage. And in this build, we do have that Samsung 870 EVO drive. So we have the ability to either put it right here on the back of the motherboard or right down here on the 6 3.5-inch bays. But I'm thinking actually to remove these, make it a lot more clean, even though it's just the bottom, to keep everything unobstructed. Later on, I'm going to go ahead and install another fan along the front. That way we have some cool air going into the power supply. As of right now, it's kind of just sucking up a little bit of nothing. Coming from down here, it's going to suck up some air, but just to give it some more fresh air. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'll just go ahead, I'll remove, I think maybe it'll be nicer if I used this one instead. Yeah, doesn't really matter totally, but I'll go ahead and use this one. So for the SSD, here we're going to grab the tray that we just took out. We're going to place the SSD right on the tray with the SATA data and the SATA power sticking towards the bottom of the drive. Then we're going to go ahead and line the screw holes here. And then we'll use these teeny tiny screws that we saw before in this case. to screw in. So I'm going to do all 4 real quick off camera. Okay, so then once it's on there nice and tight, we'll just slide that back in down here and then screw that right over here. And that's it. So now we've inserted an SSD. So now that we've done the entire hardware portion of the build, of course, minus the power supply, because that's where all the cables are going to come from, at least the power, you know, we've finished the entire build of the machine. So this video was just showing you guys how to build the machine itself. The next video coming up is going to be on cable management, how to get all the cables connected from point A to point B, and then how to make everything look nice and pretty. So stay tuned for that one coming up soon. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou and the Sinatra build out. See you guys.
Boy.